Hello, I'm Brian Davids, and welcome to the Hollywood Reporter Presents Q&A with the creatives behind The Boys Presents Diabolical, Amazon Prime Video's animated anthology spinoff of The Boys live-action series. Let's kick things off with showrunner Simon Racioppa. Simon, when you came on board as showrunner, what was the understanding between you and Boys showrunner Eric Kripke? How much interaction could you have with the Mothership series?
Eric was amazing. Eric was sort of like, let's go crazy. There's almost no guardrails. Let's do something big and amazing and awesome. I think his only request was like, it had to be great, which, small part of hit there. He was just like, make it amazing. But he's like, as long as it's true to Vought, to the rules they've sort of set up in the Mothership show. So like, obviously, Black Noir had to act like Black Noir. Vought had to act like Vought. Other than that, he was open to sort of any creative direction, any sort of ideas that people like Andy came in and pitched us. So it was super freeing and super awesome to work with him. He was really open to all kinds of ideas.
And just to follow up on episode 8, is that considered the canonical origin story for Homelander?
According to Eric, it is. I think he said he considers 3 episodes canonical to The Boys. One of them is John and Sun He, which is, the episode Steve and Andy wrote and directed respectively. And then Nubian versus Nubian, which is Aisha Tyler's, the episode she wrote and Matthew Bourdain directed. And then the last one is 1 + 1 = 2, which is the episode I wrote, and then John Carlo and Jay Kim directed.
Andy Samberg, I was so surprised to see that you wrote for this series that I briefly wondered if there was another Andy Samberg in town. So to ask the obvious, how did you end up on this series?
I have a long-running rule of when Seth and Evan call me, I just say, "What is it?" And the answer is almost always yes. I just love those guys and love everything that they put their names on. And I was a fan of the show, so I immediately perked up. And the first call was to Miki Van Yorm, because that's how it usually goes, and we're all buddies. So they were like, "Hey, does Lonely Island want to do one?" And Key and Yorm both like, I don't know. And I just, for whatever reason, was like, I have an idea. It's not a comedy idea, but I have an idea. And so I got on a Zoom with these guys and told it to them, and they were like, great. And that was kind of it.
Giancarlo Volpe, you directed a rather interesting episode that Garth Ennis wrote. He's the co-creator of the comic, of course, and it used his Boys comic as a framing device. So the characters looked like his incarnations, not the live action incarnation. So what was kind of the story behind that episode?
I mean, gosh, Simon may know more about the infancy, like the origin of how it came about, but it just felt right. Like, we've done this, obviously the Boys television show is a huge success, but there's still little things that were done differently from the comics, some that had to be done and some that, some fans felt were questionable causes or calls. So it felt like the right thing to do is sort of a love letter to the fans and do something that came directly from the source. So we, not only got Garth Ennis to write it, but also based the designs on kind of Derek Robertson's like original comic designs. And it was designed to feel like sort of a lost issue, if you will. Like if you read the comics, this could have fit somewhere in the middle somewhere.
Not only that, Derek Robertson did us an original cover for that episode. So when that episode opens, there's this Boys cover that comes out of a comic book box, and that's a brand new original piece of artwork from Derek for the series. So it's a lost issue. It was written by Garth. It has a cover by Derek. I don't know how more authentic it could be as, a lost part of the Boys mythos.
That's awesome. And Steve, you directed the 7th episode, which was Andy's script. When you signed on, was the script and the animation style already set in stone, or do you get to kind of shape that and influence it to some degree?
I think nothing was set stone when I hopped in. Even I got a first call from John Carlo. What he proposed to me was bringing kind of my personal taste and style, color on the table. So it was a really great project where I can kind of personally approach to this great story that Andy already wrote. So ingredient were kind of raw and plain, which is still great. I just needed to cook it more Korean flavor and spiciness. So if I put it that way, so that's how yeah, it was done.
I can give it some additional context there too. Like I've been a fan of Steve's for a while. Like he did a independent project, Blossom Detective Homes, that I thought was super cool. Like he just kind of like kickstarted, crowd funded it, and just like a complete filmmaker. So when we were finding directors to help do The Boys, myself and Benjamin Kaltenecker, who was our line producer, so Benjamin brought up Steve, and I remember thinking at the time, like, I would love to have Steve on this. Is he going to be okay with like this horror, kind of traumatizing? But thankfully you loved it and had some, felt like there was something you could bring to it. So thank you for coming on board.
Giancarlo, you also have the title of supervising director. For the uninitiated, including the person speaking, what exactly does that mean as far as your role within the rest of the episodes?
So it's always a bit of an abstract question. Like I think the way it was structured on this is every director controlled and directed their individual shorts, and we tried to lean heavily on them to do so. I was brought on to oversee all 8 of them, kind of between myself and Simon. And so on certain shorts, like the ones that I specifically directed and co-directed, I had a very heavy hand. Like I was like, no, it should look like this. And I'm literally sketching the character or drawing the storyboards, stuff like that. On others, I had a much lighter touch because the directors had, such a strong vision on what they were doing. I felt like it would only have ruined it if I would have, interfered too much. So it's meant to sort of keep the quality consistent across all 8. But, I'm very happy to say that in many cases I didn't have to do a ton because everyone was so amazing at their jobs.
So getting into some general questions, we've had so much superhero content the last 2 decades, and most of it has been designed for the masses. So is the Boys franchise connecting with people because it can take risks that these other properties can't? Is that why it's such a big hit?
I think so. I think obviously Marvel sort of owns a huge chunk of the superhero world, and they do what they do really, really well. But certainly there's boundaries on Marvel material, places where they just won't go. I think The Boys is more of maybe a lens to look at our current world through than Marvel is, maybe a little more political. So I think that's one way it differentiates itself from a lot of other superhero content. It makes itself, maybe more interesting, maybe more relevant, certainly right now.
Andy, why do you think The Boys stands out in the ocean of superhero content?
As someone who watches basically all of it, because it didn't start out trying to be for everybody. Like when the jump off point is clearly made by someone who's doing it because they want to see it happen and see it made, that always resonates with people, I think. It's certainly been the stuff I've been gravitating towards the most in my life as a viewer and as a creator. And yeah, when you set up the rules early that you can do whatever you fucking feel like, that's very freeing for a viewer to be like, I don't know what's going to happen. It's almost like the superhero version of South Park or something, where you're like, well, I'm not holding this to the standard of a Marvel or something. I'm holding it to the standard of the world of The Boys because it created its own lane. But it still has depth, and it feels like there is a full formed world there with its own rules, and it still has the fun of superhero stuff.
I also love it, from a animation standpoint, I guess all of us could, have history in animation. There's a lot of stuff that you're not allowed to do because of this gross preconception that animation is for kids. And of course, I love that there's tons of animated content for kids. I grew up on it. It's part of the reason why I do it to this day, is because it was so influential as a child. But we also grew up on Akira and Gundam and whatever, tons of things that I'm spacing on right now. Animatrix that did all kinds of adult content, and so it's such a great pairing to have animation and the boys, because the boys kind of, sets itself up as like, we do whatever you want, whatever we want, as Andy was saying. And that's something that we've been saying for decades as animators or animation people, like, stop putting us in a box. Like, obviously not knocking kids content, but we want to take on much broader stuff, sure.
What about you, Steve? Why does The Boys stand out to you?
I think for a long time, we've been watching pretty similar superhero rule and hero's way of method of solving problems and conflict or drama. And every time superhero movie or show, you need superhero to solve the things. But The Boys is approaching kind of opposite way. It's kind of twisting that to the audience's eye. So it comes very fresh, and it stays with perspective coming from kind of human eye level rather than superhero. So, like, for example, John and Sunny is pretty like perspective is coming in very human level rather than superhero who needs another superpower to solve it. So I think it's more relatable to kind of general audience, and fresh in twisted story. So I think that's why it's pretty new.
So based on Aquafina's episode, it seems like no idea was too crazy for this series, but were there some ideas that were too crazy for this series?
Almost none. Like, we got pitched, I think obviously we went out and approached people whose creative work we loved, who we admired, people like Andy, obviously, and our other writers, and we stopped when we hit 7 or 8, which was the number of our episodes, and then we just let them pitch ideas. So really, it was just a matter of working through the ideas with them to find ones that sort of resonated, worked in the world, and then also were animatable in like the 11 months we had to do this, because we did not have a lot of time. So I'm trying to think if there was no one pitched a whole idea that we couldn't do. It was more like, we can do that, but maybe we can't do that one aspect of it in this time and make it look good. So what if we could change that or approach it from a different angle?
Is this like, how family friendly is this panel?
Oh yeah, that's a good question.
Because I can give you a more explicit answer to that, but I'm not sure like who's listening. We had very specific details on how much of a aroused male organ we can show. So
yeah.
there's a line you can't cross, but we did allude to it a bit.
Turns out it's more than none, but not everything. It's in between those two borders.
I feel like there's tons of kids watching the Hollywood Reporter panels.
Yeah. It's hot amongst like 8-year-olds. Like,
dude,
you're gonna get angry letters from parents.
See The Boys one? Some playground chat.
There are 8 episodes. Did you present 15 ideas, 12 ideas? Did you whittle it down to 8? How did that the breaking of story happen?
No, really, we found 7, because I wrote the 8th one, so I'm not counting me, but we found 7 writers, including Seth and Evan, who we wanted to work with, 7 creative people. And we're just like, we want to do a story with you. What do you want to do? And then really, it was just a discussion. There was nobody we approached who pitched us an idea and we went, no, thanks, we'll find someone else. It really was, we went out to 7 people and then we just worked with them to find what's that cool idea that fits in the world of The Boys, that you're excited about, that we're excited about, that we could do. That Eric loved, that we loved, and that's really how it works. So we kind of just did them. We didn't go. We came up with 8 ideas and we did 8 episodes.
Going back to the interaction with Kripke, were there any instances where there was some overlap or something that they were already doing that you had to kind of to revise somewhat?
I don't know, John Carlo. I don't think so. I think there was we were privy to a lot of the work on season 3 just to make sure that we weren't contradicting anything. And obviously we want to make sure that like we show Vought or Vaught's representatives in a lot of our episodes, that had to be consistent with what Vought is in the show. But I don't think there was anything that was that was like taken off the table. The big one was linking up, making sure that our Black Noir matched what happens to Black Noir in season 3. So that's why we had an early conversation with Eric when he's like, okay, this is what's happening with Noir in season 3. Here's the backstory that no one knows about. And we were able to incorporate some of that, if not all of it, some of it into our episode.
You know, the last couple years, there have been several examples of certain people not catching the boys' drift as far as the satire is concerned. And Eric Kripke and Anthony Starr have always had amusing responses to this phenomenon. You know, Homelander just seems to go over people's heads for some reason. I don't know why. And this is a big question, but what's the guiding principle with satire and kind of dialing up the right amount? How much do you lean into it or pull back?
Yeah, for me, I don't know. I've always just been like, if it makes me and the people I'm working with laugh, we don't really think too hard about it. I'm kind of in a good spot because I generally, from the jump, have been someone that's like, I don't want to do that if it makes people feel bad. It's like, that's just not my brand of comedy, generally speaking, and that is aging pretty well with our current society. But yeah, I mean, you have to always just go with your gut when you're creating. If you think about what everyone else is thinking about, you'll never make something original, and that's death.
What about you, Simon? Like, how much do you know to lean into it?
Well, I think I know what specifically what you're asking about is that stuff where, you know, obviously people were upset to find out that Homelander was the villain of the show. I mean, is that true? I mean, I know people reacted like that, but like he kills a bunch of people in the first episode. He's, you know, he downs a plane. He murders other people. He drinks milk from someone's breast as an adult. Like,
Yeah.
like,
I feel like the
really?
music was telling us right out of the gate.
Yeah. Like, did people really, were the people like, oh yeah, that dude, that's who I want to be. You know, like I want to identify with. I mean, maybe in that case, I don't know what to say. Like, we can't help you. You know, I don't think Homelander could have been portrayed more villainously on screen, short of like just tearing dogs like heads off puppies, than he was. So if people somehow took the conception that he was supposed to be the hero of the series, I don't even know what to say. You
Is
know,
that really
it's
the
like,
complaint?
yeah.
I mean, that's like being like, but Ned Stark was on the poster. Yeah, well, it's
exactly.
Show.
How dare they
show
tarnish?
make it? They make
You
it.
know, yeah, exactly. You know, it's like it's like those little packets of silica gel you get in like electronics that say like do not eat is not food. Like if someone's gonna eat it, like what, like we've made it, it doesn't look like food, it doesn't smell like food, it came in a box with the new iPhone. Like if someone's still gonna eat it after that point, I mean, like what else can we do?
I mean, those do taste kind of good though.
Yeah, with a little garlic and oregano, they go down.
Okay,
Guys,
so
don't
I
even
rest.
joke.
Yeah.
There's so many kids watching this. Don't even joke.
Sorry, eighth graders.
No, from what I've noticed, I mean, the season 3 finale made this, you know, explicitly clear, but the point that is missed is who and what Homelander represents.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been some shocked responses to the realization of who and what he represents. So I think they recognize, yeah, he's a villain, but they didn't quite recognize who he's a stand-in for.
Oh, you mean Trump, obviously. Can we say that? Can we say that
Sure.
online? Like, I think that was also part of it. Well, I mean, I think the boys, you know, takes a scalpel to and sort of opens up and examines the current media state of what is truth, right? What is truth and what are lies and what do people believe and what is the state of what someone can get away with now in public office or in public life. You know, like again, like Homelander, I think the show, the season 3 ends super powerfully when Homelander kills that person and there's that beat. You know, he just kills someone in public and there's that beat of everyone's like, what's going to happen now? And then people just start cheering and clapping. Obviously that ties back to, you know, I think that Trump quote of him being like, I could shoot someone and wouldn't lose a vote. Well, you know, who knows? Maybe that's true, maybe that's not, but I think it's worth examining. And I think that's what the show sort of delved into. So again, if people were unclear with what that reference was, I'm not sure. I mean, it's not the show's job to give you a booklet beforehand to understand it. I think, you know, that comes across in the watching of it and you should be able to interpret it how you want. But I do think that was pretty clear in the show.
It also sort of explains his odd, orange face. Where we recorded Anthony Starr, I was like, oh, he's got sort of like, actually good looking skin.
So I was going to ask about this. Did you get him in a vocal booth at his studio, or was he submitting audio from his walk-in closet?
No, he was shooting in Toronto. And when we record actors remotely, usually what we try and do is find a local studio that we patch our studio here in Los Angeles into, and they do this sort of patch link. And then they're in a studio, you can see the actor on camera and you have a link with them and you can direct them from our side remotely, and we record them like that. Although some actors do have a home booth, but no, we got him into a studio. We got him and Chase, into a studio. All the boys actors we got into studios in Toronto where they're shooting. It was the middle pandemic though, so there was like a little bit of like bubble stuff happening that we had to be careful about how we did it.
So we've only got a few minutes left, but I want to hear if there are any plans for season 2. Are there things in the work? Is there another batch of episodes potentially coming?
We have not been greenlit for a second season, but conversations are happening. We're starting to talk about it, about what we could do. I think the idea is that we wouldn't do the same thing again. We try and do something different, give you something new. I think that's the promise of Diabolical, is that it's something new every season.
Giancarlo, Andy, and Steve, do you guys have other ideas that you are kind of champing at the bit to explore in a potential season 2?
There was definitely, I remember when we were working on season 1, there was lots of jokes about like, yeah, and then in part 2, this will happen. Like, there's a part of me, and I don't mean to make any promises that I can't keep, but like, what's the aftermath of that Sun-Hee cancer monster battle? Like what does that look like? What's the next 10 minutes or something? Or so, but nothing official. But we definitely joked and talked about that quite a bit.
Steve, are you ready for the call if it comes?
Yeah, if Andy writes part 2 of John and Sunny, I'll be there for
You'll
you
be
guys.
Maybe a prequel.
Prequel, yes.
To close on Simon, I think you're the best person to confirm this. Can you say for certain that Hootie and the Blowfish are fans of the boys? Was there any added communication when you got clearance for their song?
They were amazing and let us use their song, which again doesn't pull fun at the band, but we have some fun with their song. So I just had to write them a letter when we asked for the song. It was just sort of explain that we're going to use it in this fun context. It's going to be great. I have not heard back from Hootie or the Blowfish, but maybe hopefully they're fans. I hope they saw it and enjoyed it. The usage of their song over a multi-part murder spree. I mean, who wouldn't want that? I mean, I know if I wrote a song and someone used that to orchestrate a murder spree, I would be touched.
And for the people who happen to be watching this but haven't watched the series yet, is there an episode each of you would point them to besides the ones that you individually wrote or directed?
Well, I mean, there was this amazing episode written by this incredible writer, Andy Samberg, and this incredible director, Steve On, that I would just say that everyone deserves to watch at least 5 or 6 times, just like, when you're tired of not feeling emotional and you want to cry about something like that really touches you in the heart, you should watch John and Sun-Hee.
It's definitely a tricky question to answer too, because what I like about this anthology is that there's something for everyone. So if you want something funny, there's the sort of Justin Roiland, Brandon Baif episode or the Aquafina one. If you want something that's more canonical, then 1+1 or I guess even the Garth Ennis episode is great in that it sort of echoes the comics. So maybe just watch all of them and then decide which one you like best.
Congratulations to all of you on The Boys Presents Diabolical, and thank you for joining the Hollywood Reporter Presents Q&A series.